Yes, you read that right. Newton's first law of motion debunks the spinning ball Earth. Air molecules, particles in the air, all the air and clouds would also move as per Newton's law. An object in motion will tend to stay in motion at a constant speed and in a straight line, right? Unless an outside force acts upon it to change that. Well, there's nothing to change that. Gravity is located at the center of mass. So everything that goes around a center of mass acts like an orbit, right? And when something orbits around a center of mass, it goes in a straight line, just like if you were to traverse around the equator on a spinning ball. So remember, as I talk about this, I'm so used to talking about just the water that I don't mention the clouds in the air, but you can think of it in terms of the same thing. They all would move to the equator and crash from north and south. And our Earth would look like I did in this animation. The clouds would kind of look like how Saturn looks. So let's go on. So remember this guy with the red ball? Threw this up, you can see, we've all seen pictures of tennis balls, and when you spin it, the water spins off at the equator. Now, the Earth works exactly the same way, even though they'll try to say, oh no, but gravity, the center of mass. Yes, I'm going to say gravity aids in the water moving to the equator and flying off. But right here, you can see this little animation I made. I love this animation. It's just very peaceful to me. I made it in Blender. I used the physics tabs. I put it on extremely low friction, right? But the balls are still rolling. They have a little friction. You can actually see one of them curve at the very end. What this represents, the white little balls and pucks, represent water molecules. All right, let's say this is the top of the ball. We just shaved off the top 10 degrees of latitude. The upper 90 degrees of latitude. So the outside of this flat little circular plane is moving about 100 miles per hour, okay? An object in motion will tend to stay in motion at a constant speed and in a straight line, right? Unless it's acted upon by something that changes that. Okay, water is a very low friction, super low friction environment. This guy pops this swimming pool. I'll throw a couple little animations in, but mostly I want to stick with this animation. I just want this animation to play while I talk. But anyway, you see when he pops this above ground pool, the water just goes everywhere. It can't contain itself. It's going to move, and it always moves in a straight line. Shoot water out of a garden hose. It goes in a straight line. Even if you spray it in a circle, the dots of water, the drops of water go in a straight line. Right? They curve down for, density, buoyancy, blah, 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 downward vector. Everything moves down to the ground. But everything moves in a straight line at a constant speed unless it's acted upon. So that's what I'm showing with these balls and a couple pucks, I think. They're going in a straight line. Now, the red bar that's hitting them at a perfect right angle to the rotation, that is turning perfectly and staying at a right angle or square to the rotation because it's tethered to the little pole, right? And I have it tethered to the platform. The P-Brane, that's also imprinted on the platform. So it's turning, it's making a turn. So all the latitudes, and I've covered this, I'll put a playlist together, hopefully I will, and I'll put it in the description, but all the videos I've done so far for the past 4 to 5 years on rotation. I haven't done a whole lot. See, what happens is these videos, I put them out, they get some views, but then they're forgotten about, right? They go down the memory hole, whew, gone. That's why I'm thinking about wanting to put out a series of shorter videos. I'm already getting long on this one, but I want to put out a series of shorter videos and kind of highlight some of the little animations I've made that make a great point. So, and another thing curious to me is this is such a great point that all water would move to the equator of a spinning ball if we were actually spinning, and in lieu of, or in light of the fact that they say we have a 14-mile high bulge and the poles of the earth are squashing many miles in, right? This is a catastrophic, cataclysmic event. This would create earthquakes like you've never seen, but they'll say, no, it's an equilibrium, P-Brane. It's sustaining. Yeah, it's supposedly sustaining a 14-mile high equatorial bulge right now. So when the Earth supposedly rotated faster at one point in history, they say millions of years, hundreds of thousands of years ago, whatever, the bulge was bigger. So now it's slightly smaller. But this is sustaining this bulge, right? That's ground has shifted. Dirt, rock, mud shifted, right? What do you think the water's going to do? Well, the water, an object in motion, will tend to stay in motion at a constant speed and in a straight line. That's these pucks. These are water molecules. They are going to want to go straight. There is, and the whole point of my whole thing is there's nothing to make it rotate around the pole. A couple things that have a little bit of influence is friction, but as you can see when I pop the swimming pool, the water goes everywhere, right? It's just going to go. There is nothing holding. The only thing that can hold water is like if on this platform, you put a little puddle on the platform. That can rotate around with the platform. But anything bigger or taller than 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch where water tension holds the water's shape, anything taller than that, the water spews out. The weight is too much for the tiny force of surface tension, right? The refraining or constraining property of water tension. It can only work at the very lightest, smallest amount of water, right? So otherwise, this water is going to go, and it's going to go unrestrained. It's going to go in a straight line. The rotation is going to throw it out from center, and what it does is it takes it on a great circle. Now, I've gone over great circles in my last video, but I'll say it real quick. Great circle is the largest circle you can draw on a sphere. And the reason it's the largest is it always bisects the sphere. It's the equator, so to speak. No matter how you draw it on a sphere, you've just made an equator on the sphere. You've bisected the sphere. Okay? All the other circles, and those would be longitude lines, by the way. The up and down, north and south lines. All the latitude lines are called small circles, except for the equator. The equator is also a great circle. It bisects the ball. The equator is the only place that you would have to traverse. If you were going to traverse the equator in a speedboat or a car, and let's say there was a road goes all the way around the earth, you could put your steering wheel on dead straight and navigate and go right over the ball and come back around and meet exactly where you started. You go in a dead straight line. All the other latitudes, north and south of that, you have to turn. Right? Now, I had ballers come on and argue with me, and the point they make is that when they try to argue this point, they're actually describing a cylinder. This is the only way you can have water like this, dead still, when there's no wind blowing, that's on a rotating sphere at latitudes above the equator. The only way you can have that stay put and calm, glassy water is for it to not be moving. So they're co-opting, of course, hijacking what we see in reality. And the only way that they can explain that is they say gravity. Yeah, but gravity holds everything to the center. Everything would be tethered to the center. What happens when you orbit? When they show orbits in video games and everything, they orbit around a center, right? In a straight line, up and over, just like traversing over the equator. It's a great circle shape, right? There's no curve. You're not turning left or right. You're just going up and over, up and over. When you take a rock on the end of a string and you twirl it around, it's making a straight line, like this hula hoop. Remember that from this video, I put this hula hoop up. When you put it at eye level, you can see it's a straight line. You would traverse it on the outside of the hula hoop and you would travel in a straight line. So they would argue a cylinder with gravity located at the pole. And then sure, if that were the shape of the Earth, then water could stay put and look like glass. But that's not the shape, right? Water would go in a straight line. And a straight line, you know that all great circles intersect each other. And all great circles that the water would make, all these little pucks, these little circles are making, as they leave the platform, they would make a great circle. They would go around this ball and come back where they started. So they would go in a straight line and they would intersect the equator of the ball. From north, they would head south. From south of the equator, from the South Pole, they would head north and they would collide at the equator, something we do not observe, not even the littlest bit, nothing. This tells you right here, and in lieu of the squashing of the poles in the 14-mile-high equatorial bulge they say we have, they're toast with that one. How they came up with that one and said that out loud. But no, water has to. So when you see the red ball spinning, if it had a gravitational center, if the center of mass were active in this ball, and the water would do this exact same thing. It would still move to the equator and everything would go in a great circle around the globe. So again, if you think of this rotating platform I have here as the top 10 degrees off the North Pole, just slice it right off. Now, not only is it not flat, it would be slightly convex, right? And so the molecules would really want to slide down, right? Of course, you know, they'd say, well, gravity's in the middle. That's fine. It'll orbit. Each one of these little pucks or balls that I have here would orbit. The gravitational pull, the center of mass, would keep it going in a great circle around the Earth, and they would crash at the equator. This is the best argument. Rotation. All they could do when they came to my channel, and I got tons of trolls when I put these videos out, all they could do was argue a cylinder. They call it a sphere, but they argue a cylinder. They say, no, the latitude lines are straight lines, so they would just go up and over, and they would stay with the rotation. That's how you could see water like glass. Well, no. You notice the surface of a cylinder is parallel to the pole. So like swinging a rock on the end of a string, that would stay put. If you had its gravitational force at the pole, you could have still lakes and ponds at all latitudes. But a sphere is not, right? When you lay a line down that's perpendicular to the pole, it actually takes it on a course down to the equator, a great circle, remember? This is a hard one to get across. Here's a ball that I drew, and I drew latitude lines on, just to show you. When you put a straight line on it, you cannot put a straight line on that latitude line. The straight line bisects the ball. And so water's going to want to move in a straight line, right? Is that Newton's law of motion? An object in motion will tend to stay in motion at a constant speed and in a straight line, right? How is this water going to turn around the pole? It's not. It can't. It's impossible. So I welcome all the trolls, because I'm going to keep hitting this. I've been hitting it for 4 to 5 years. And what gets me too, I don't know if I said this earlier, that why haven't other flat earthers like Nathan Oakley, Jeranism, maybe they don't understand this, but why aren't the big channels jumping on this? Have them prove that the water can rotate around at various latitudes and not move to the equator. They can't.